All right, so let's go ahead and kick it into some of the news headlines. All right, so I like to see some of these particular things being posted by members of the community. So when I tell you guys, for instance, if you're super into, crypto and you're excited about, me doing deep dives about quant or whatever else we cover, or just simply want more and more of community driven news. I think that's the key thing. Community driven news, not mainstream, driven news, because mainstream driven news is not going to give you, what you're really looking for. I'm just going to be honest. It's going to be focusing on probably either like, quant, is it a good swing trade, or quant, the RSI on it is this. I mean, real specific, like the technical stuff like that. But they don't really take more of the deep dive of understanding like the interoperability, how it's connecting the world, things like that. That is not published hardly at all when it comes to mainstream news. So again, I really encourage any one of you guys, whether you're a fan of Twitter or not, like for the longest time, before I got really in deep dive into crypto and so on, became an altcoin investor, because basically that's where it's at. I used to think Twitter was stupid. I was like, who cares about, this guy's tweeting about like, what kind of salad he had. I'm looking at it from like, the Facebook Web 2, mentality of things. But as I got more and more into altcoins, right, because I did very well in 2021, I said to myself, you know what, crypto or Twitter is definitely that resource. So anyway, check this out. It says, wait until people realize Quant times that LCX partnership is specifically dealing with CBDC settlement. Yeah, how true. LCX is the most underrated gem. I couldn't agree more. It says, but once the quant community really puts this together, it will explode. You got to keep in mind, this seems like this is something brand new, right? It's not. We'll get into that right now. Specifically speaking, let me see if you guys can actually see this. Hold on. Oh, I got shared a different way. All right, let me share this in a better way. So specifically speaking of which, you have this that has been worked on for quite a while. This is nothing really, really new. All this originally happened, the start of it at least, Quant officially reported this back on April 19th of 2021, that particular partnership with LCX to do what? To advance CBDC settlement implementation. You have a whole breakdown of how all this started happening and so on. But what I was going to state, though, is one of the key takeaways was where you see this comes straight from Gilbert Verdian, where he states he was extremely pleased to announce the partnership back in April 2021. Now, you've already seen where Quant has gone. You already see, a lot about what LCX is doing and so on. But check this out. It says the implementation of CBDC across the world is now a question of when, not if, though some key challenges remain. Now, I want to state this for the record. Back then, it was kind of like the rumor of CBDC is coming. Now, let's face it, 20 years ago, if somebody would have mentioned the concept of CBDC, I mean, they probably would have been looked at as like, how a lot of people looked at people who were talking about UFOs 20 years ago. You're nuts. That's not going to happen. And the reality is all this stuff is happening. And my point and key takeaway here for you guys is this specific thing. And that is the implementation of CBDCs across the world. In our recent coverage, we've been talking specifically about Quant and that implementation. I even refer to on one of the thumbnails as, quote, an implementation period. We are in that implementation period. The utility is already there, so it has to be implemented. But from there, we go from that implementation period. We'll go from that to mass adoption. And of course, mass adoption equals the utility actually being used at scale, massive scale. That's what excites me, because that's one perfect example of how we get to a utility run. And of course, from there, the overall bull run that everybody wants to see. We never had a utility run before in the history of crypto. Yeah, some people are going to say, well, there's specific ones and so on, but I'm talking about a massive wave utility run. Simply has never been there before. Why has it not happened before? Well, the reason for it is because, think about it. These particular products and services, whether it's Quants over Ledger or some of the things that LCX is trying to solve, or some of these other ones from ISO 222, right? You know, the particular list and so on. Those were all innovations that were being developed, and some of them are still being developed, if not constantly upgraded, right? So you have this huge conglomerate phase of all these different specific projects, and then we're going to be implementing those in. It just simply makes sense that, for me personally, when I look at the indicators, that we will have what is referred to as utility run. And this is not me just pulling this out of thin air or anything like that. Shout out to Luke Lango of Investor Place, Charlie Shrem, right? Part of the Bitcoin Foundation. They have pointed out specifically these things to have indicators for the utility run. And when we have more and more updates on those specifics that you guys seen recently that show you, for instance, actual data to support, you know, the 4-year cycles and so on, we'll break that out more to you. But anyway, I wanted to show you guys this because it's important to reflect back on, you know, the fact that Quant partnered with LCX to do just that, advanced CBDC settlement implementation. This is not something that was just worked on like a few months ago. This was something that was worked on literally since April 19th of 2021. All right. And it's this right here. So as we know, Huobi is making news headlines. All right. But look at this. It says the sooner the regulation comes, the sooner LCX will go hyperbolic. Wow, I haven't heard of hyperbolic before. I think I'll still stick with parabolic, but that's all right. Hyperbolic, huh? But nonetheless, to jaw-melting numbers. This excites me, not just because it's worth noting. I don't really think it's like a case of hopium. I truly believe that with all the naysayers saying, you know, regulation is bad, you also have to keep in mind we have to have regulatory clarity. Once we have regulatory clarity, I think that solidifies the utility of standout projects or products when it comes to crypto related specific ones, whether it comes to LCX or some of these other ones. Yes, this is a correct statement. LCX will become Europe's primary change. You literally see everything that's been put into place about it and so on. And all I got to say is shame on me for not recognizing it earlier, back last summer, when our community mentioned this a while back. Shout out to Mike Cornwell, Tim Shea, all you guys, maybe even Kuchu Boy, maybe even Cool Cat Crypto. I don't know. But I know there was a group of you guys who mentioned for the longest time, Max, you need to look more into, for instance, the likes of what? The likes of LCX, because it's going to become a, you know, like a bank. And I said to myself, well, all right, I'll look more into that. And I did, but not to the degree of where we're basically at right now. So yeah, it will become Europe's primary exchange. LCX will be operational in the future, even when other exchanges get closed down because of stronger regulations. And you got to keep in mind, this is LCX. And LCX, if anything, has been the target of what? The SEC. And I understand the whole thing of like, well, I'm not going to get into LCX because of the SEC. So you're going to get into LCX when everything blows up after regulatory clarity? Then you miss out. But guess what the good thing is for us who, for instance, hold LCX? The good thing is we already got in when there wasn't regulatory clarity, when the prices were low. That's the key difference.